My name is Riku Paavola and I'm the station manager and senior researcher at Oulanka Research Station. Right now I'm at the Puukkoso Fen site, which is one of our 2 EcoClimate research sites. In this area we have a lot of exciting new research. First of all, we have now continuous methane and CO2 measurements started by Torben Christensen and his group from Aarhus University in Denmark. We have recently installed PAR sensors, which means photosynthetically active radiation. Also, we have installed a Trios Opus, continuously measuring a DOC sensor at the nearby river Oulanka Joki.
Sieltä se laite nousee.
In 2021, we will be looking at soil qualities in more detail by doing a ground-penetrating radar research survey on both of these sites. Plus, we recently got funding for some high-quality equipment which will let us look at multispectral aspects of these research plots. This means we will get imagery and spectroscopy on ultraviolet, infrared and thermal ranges. This will be very exciting. And we will be very happy to incorporate new research projects and proposals. Recently we have also started a deep collaboration with Aarhus University in Denmark, which means that Professor Torben Christensen will be sharing a professorship between Oulu University and Aarhus University.
Jeff Welker is continuing his extremely good work at Oulanka, especially in the pine forest research site, and he has a lot of news to tell.
Beautiful.
We're also starting a new collaboration with Professor Hannu Fritze from Natural Resources Institute, focusing on microbial aspects of the experimental platform. An even more recent development is from the Geological Survey of Finland, mainly with Jarkko Okkonen, and they are now planning a new and deep collaboration with us. And carbon is the common thing in all of these projects and links.
My name is Torben Christensen. I'm a professor at Aarhus University. I'm a climate scientist specializing in Arctic ecosystems. Here in Oulanka, we're interested in the greenhouse gas exchanges in the ecosystems that are holding a lot of carbon. There is about 7 meters of peat that's pure organic, dead organic material, which is carbon, stored here, and we're interested in the dynamics and how well and stored that is, if it may end up in the atmosphere. And we're interested in comparing it to sites we have in the high Arctic, where we are experiencing warming very rapidly. And we are then sort of wanting to compare this more moderately cold environment with the very cold Arctic, and look at differences and how the climate change is in fact progressing in the northern environments. The Oulanka Research Station is a perfect place for us to bring students to teach a future generation of researchers on the issues relating to carbon exchanges in high northern environments and how that is interacting with climate change. So what we're installing here now is equipment that can measure methane. Methane as a very powerful greenhouse gas has not been measured in this environment here, this particular site before. And there we have a fantastic opportunity in surroundings here to measure exchanges, which we can compare with what we have in Greenland, in the high Arctic, in a much colder environment, but still comparable. There is a tremendous amount of carbon out there. We don't know what is going to happen with it under climate change. And there is enough to really influence the further development of climate. So what we are doing here is simply trying to understand a lot of the processes that we don't understand. I like to say that with the ecosystems and how they influence the greenhouse gas balance of the Earth, we know that we don't know very much. And we would like to try and understand the systems better. And this is what we're trying to do here.
My name is Liselotte Sørensen. I'm here in Oulanka to measure greenhouse gases. And I mainly here measure the greenhouse gas CO2. And I'm doing that by putting up some instruments in the small masts. And I don't know if you can see the small mast behind me. And that's going to be measuring over the winter, so we can see how the greenhouse gas or how the CO2 is released or taken up by the surface over the winter. The measurements we're doing here, it would be really great if we could have these type of measurements over several years, because in that way we can actually see how climate is affecting the uptake of CO2 or the release of CO2, of course. So that would be very valuable to our science. Another thing we're looking at is actually the energy budget. We also measure the energy, incoming energy and outgoing energy from the system to see how it affects the greenhouse gases and how it affects the ecosystem in general.
My name is Timo Motka and I'm holding a professorship in aquatic ecology at the University of Oulu. We mainly study benthic invertebrates in streams and rivers, but also other organism groups like microbial organisms, bacteria, fungi, and then eventually also fish.
Samat joet tulee pitkää aikasarjaa.
We have been monitoring 24 headwater streams that drain River Oulanka and other large rivers in the area for more than 20 years now, and that's pretty exceptional internationally. There aren't many corresponding data series anywhere. We study also microbial communities, particularly bacteria, and then the quality of dissolved organic carbon that originates from the terrestrial ecosystem is a very important factor regulating bacterial communities. So that's the link to carbon.
I am Maria Väisänen and I study carbon dioxide exchange in the surrounding pine forest. Here in Oulanka we have this experimental setup which is manipulating the depth of snowpack. Snowpack has an important effect on soil microclimate during winter. When the snow is very shallow, soils are cold because there is no insulation by the snow. And these cold conditions in soil decrease carbon dioxide release because the plant roots and soil decomposer organisms cannot be active. But once the snow becomes deeper and deeper, the more it insulates and the warmer the soil becomes. And these warm soils sustain high carbon dioxide release. This setup, which is next to me, these systems, boxes and tubes, they are measuring CO2 release from soil to atmosphere during winter. And with this system, we hope to also detect how differences in snowpack will impact on carbon dioxide release. We will continue these carbon dioxide measurements during winter, but also during summer, and ultimately we will combine growing seasonal and winter carbon dioxide balances to get an annual carbon budget for this pine forest.
Hi, my name is Gesche Blume-Berry. I'm a plant ecologist, ecosystem ecologist, but I really try to figure out what the roots are doing. And I think that's quite interesting because they're really hidden from our view, and so we don't really know what's going on. And that is like the main goal of my research. So what we are trying to figure out in Oulanka is really how the changes in winter climate on the one hand, so more or less snow, affect root patterns. But then also how does a change in herbivory, so if we have more or less reindeer grazing at the site, does that change how the roots react? One of the reasons why roots are not looked at that much is just because it's really difficult to see them. And one of the methods that I use in my research also in Oulanka is to use these so-called mini rhizotrons, which are transparent tubes that are being buried permanently in the soil. And then we have a scanner, a root camera that we can put in and then take pictures of the soil surface and the roots at the tube. And with that we can actually go back over time to the same spot, observe the same roots and see when the production is taking place. Is it more in early summer or late summer or during midsummer? Is there any production over the winter? Does it change with, for example, less snow, we have deeper roots or more shallow roots? And that's really one of the really nice things with these mini rhizotrons, because they allow us to look below ground. Plants are generally really important in the carbon cycle because they are kind of the pathway. So they take up carbon from the atmosphere through photosynthesis and then store it in their biomass, and then also eventually it ends up in the soils. And that's why the roots are really important in that cycle.
So my name is Hannu Marttila. I'm an assistant professor. I'm researching catchment hydrology in the northern environment. So one of the key hydrology component is the groundwater. And understanding of the groundwater cycle and the processes and groundwater levels, we need to drill groundwater wells. So we need wells to monitoring the fluctuation of the water table during the different seasons, because the groundwater is also important carbon source in the landscape, and quite often it's ignored in the calculation. So in Oulanka, we want to now quantify the carbon which is coming also from the groundwater sources to the rivers. So far, there hasn't been any groundwater research done in Oulanka. So this is one of the first studies done in this region. It's like a missing link at the moment. Next steps in the future is that we are starting to build the groundwater model to the site, which is giving us the possibility to not only to model the groundwater movement, but also to study to predict the future. So with the modeling, we can see the future, and then with the understanding of this hydrological cycle, we can then also study to understand that how does it affecting on the carbon cycle in these landscapes.